Welcome, guys, to the show. And let's start by going down an introduction and make sure to include if you are for standard dungeons or against them. I got lucky and rolled high, so I'll start off first. I'm Pixel Fusion. I do the Let's Chat About series and the Let's Talk About series on YouTube, of course. And I am in favor of standard dungeons. I actually did not like the implementation of dungeons and dungeon style mechanics in Breath of the Wild. Next up is Bandit.
Well, hello. My name is Bandit from Bandit Games. I make videos about the lore of primarily the Legend of Zelda series, which is why I'm here. And standard dungeons, I would absolutely be for the return of, because when I grew up and I got to know Zelda games, one of the greatest things about them was dungeons. And I'd be lying if I said that playing through Breath of the Wild didn't feel like it was missing a little something. So anyway, I would be for it, and that's my opinion.
All right. And next up is would be Dr. Wiley, but he might be joining us later. So that would bring us to Captain Bergerson, Daniel, right?
Yeah. I'm
Go
Tom
ahead.
Ferguson. I mostly do Zelda videos about dungeon and level design. So this is like I just saw this topic. I was like, hell yeah, I gotta get in here. So but I'm absolutely for dungeons, but I think that I kind of fall somewhere in the middle in that I think there's potential to implement some of the design ideas that Breath of the Wild had with its like open air dungeon style that you saw, especially in Hyrule Castle, but still kind of have a hybrid or a marriage of ideas with traditional dungeons of old as well. So I think I fall somewhere in the middle, actually.
Okay.
Hmm.
And go ahead, Brad. Introduce yourself.
Yeah, of course. My name is the Bread Pirate, with a B, not a D. I love the Legend of Zelda series, and I make fact videos mostly about Breath of the Wild and cool things people did not know about it. My thought on dungeons and just like initial thought on them is that I think we need a mixture of, yes, the old and the new, just like the captain was saying a minute ago.
Okay. And that leaves us with Hyrule Gamer. Go ahead.
Hello, I am the Hyrule Gamer. I also make a variety of Zelda videos, mostly nowadays focused on mysteries, but honestly a bit of everything. As for dungeons, I think I lay not in the middle, but like let's say three-quarters of the way along, more towards traditional dungeons. I've talked for a while about wanting some sort of hybrid, but I think more on the side of the familiar traditional format. I liked what Breath of the Wild did, but I didn't really think it was dungeons, so to say. I thought it was its own thing. So I would very much like to see them return.
Well, that's very great to hear, guys. It sounds like most of us, if not all of us, are in favor of classic dungeons. So with that being said, let's move on to the first question. Which Breath of the Wild location would you like to see expanded into a dungeon? And to start things off, Captain Bergerson, go
Woo!
ahead.
Go, Captain!
Oh, there's so many though. There's so many. I um I think that a Breath of the Wild had a lot of locations that kind of go underutilized. But I actually kind of hope that dungeons kind of have a little more separation from the overworld of Breath of the Wild. Like I'd like the
What?
world of Hyrule is like really good. You know, that version of Hyrule. But I think dungeon potential, like we've got a lot of new areas like caves and sky islands and stuff like that. And traditionally Zelda dungeons have sort of a level of separation from like the explorable overworld. So like it's the entrance is there and it should still be there. But like the area of the overworld itself isn't like a dungeon unless maybe Skyward Sword some kind of like plays with that idea a little bit. But I think it would be really cool to see a lot of stuff in the sky that fills that dungeon role, since those are kind of like the new areas. And that was like the big thing, like everyone said, Breath of the Wild was kind of missing, right? Was like that dungeon hook that you get pulled into and immersed into. Um, yeah, so it's like I don't think there's one particular area. I think because I think there should just like the more the merrier. More dungeons is better, right? I'm kind of floundering
Hmm.
here on this topic a little bit,
No problem.
but
And you know,
yeah.
with the recent reveal from the latest trailer that we're all very excited about, there's been talk about the floating labyrinths in the sky, and maybe that will fill the role. Who knows?
They'll have to change things up because I don't want them just to be one to one to the same. Like those labyrinths were really cool, but like just going through that again as it was in Breath of the Wild would not really make like an amazing dungeon. But Bandit's like, I've had enough of this guy talking. No, no.
Sorry about that. Sorry.
I've had enough.
About
No,
to get
no.
whooped.
Try to press the mute button.
But I think so they'll have to like change things up. But I could see those you know fulfilling that role in some way. And then of course there's all these caves we see in the trailer as well that could be expanded into dungeons because caves have been dungeons before, like Dodongo's Cavern or Dragonroost Cavern. They're basically caves that fill those dungeon roles. So they could, as long as they modulate where keys and locked doors or barriers of progression are within those areas, whether it be the Sky Islands or the caves, and implement certain tropes like items would be great to see kind of come back in some shape or form. Then those areas could absolutely fill the dungeon role without even necessarily being immediately recognizable as dungeons. Like you might be playing through it and it might like clue in like halfway through. It's like, oh wait, this is like a proper dungeon. I don't know. I just want to be surprised in some way though. So I'm gonna stop talking and pass it
Sure.
over because I'm floundering a bit.
No problem. And I'm sure that topic, what you were talking about, will come up in later questions.
Mhm.
All right. Next up is Hyrule Gamer.
Okay. For me, I've went back and forth on a location that I'd like to see expanded into a dungeon. I mean, there's multiple. In the latest trailer, kind of gave even more ideas, which is where I want to go now. Well, I suppose if it's from I was gonna say the underground, but if we're talking about from Breath of the Wild specifically, um,
Yeah, I was thinking like, is there a specific place in Breath of the Wild you
yeah.
would?
I go between two, but I'm gonna say something beneath Lake Hylia. A sort of callback to Ocarina of
Oh,
Time
you
and
want
Twilight Princess's
you
water
want a
temple.
water temple.
Yeah, I'm actually
Okay.
water temple fan.
Oh.
I
I
really
love
like the
me a water
temple.
temple.
Ooh.
I
Wait, who said
love
they
me a
love
water
water?
temple.
That was we're talking to Adam right here. Hyrule Gamer said he wants the water temple.
Well, he wants it, but does
Hell
he love
yeah.
it though? Wait,
Yeah,
wait.
maybe it's a love-hate relationship. Who knows?
Okay. As
Stockholm
long as
syndrome?
hate is
Stockholm
involved,
syndrome?
I'm okay.
I'll
Hey,
clarify something. It's
I'm a
more the
water
Twilight
temple fan.
Princess one that I like.
Oh.
Oh, you like the
Okay.
little spinny stairs
Yeah.
And big fish.
and big
Yeah.
fish.
They would probably need to do a swimming mechanic, which I know all of us want anyways.
Yeah, it
but-
does kind of imply that is needed, so it's a bit more.
Yeah, we
I don't know if I'd say
suspiciously didn't see
unlikely,
any
but-
water.
Yeah. I don't know. If I'm talking just like if I could pick, I would want something under Lake Hylia, sort of calling back. I mean, I would prefer more of the vibe of how Twilight Princess did it. I preferred the atmosphere in there. But just something beneath Lake Hylia would be really cool. Some sort of, I don't know, ancient Zora temple or something completely different.
Oh, maybe you'll have to glue together a Zonai
a
like
submarine.
submarine.
Yeah.
Oh my
Oh,
God.
Oh,
snap.
that
Oh my
actually would be
God.
dope. That would be
This
so
is too
cool.
much.
Yeah.
That's the
And
coolest thing I've ever
does
heard.
look like we're going to be making vehicles in some way, so
It
you never
does.
know. But yeah, I would go for beneath Lake Hylia.
Okay, that's a good one. That's a good one. My answer sucked.
You're fine. You were
Adam knows what he's talking about.
All right. So, how about you, Bandit? What
It's me,
location?
Dr. Wiley. No, I'm just kidding.
Why need to?
No, so I have kind of a cop-out answer, I guess, but I'm a bandit, so I'm just gonna do it. Anyway, so I would like to see, there's like two parts of that answer to me. Excuse me, my voice has not woken up yet. But
You're
the
good.
lore lover in me would love to see kind of a similar thing to what Adam was just saying, but like extended to all of the old areas because Breath of the Wild has like every area ever from previous Zelda games. So I'm talking like, hey, what if we went and dug under Arbiter's grounds and oh, there's an entrance, or what if we dove under Lake Hylia and oh, there's the old water temple, or we went into Death Mountain and found the fire temple, or stuff like that. That would be probably too like way too good to be true, but I think I would just like scream from like my excitement if we actually got to go spelunking into these caves and then find like the old temples. But obviously it would have had to have been completely redone to fit Breath of the Wild's new mechanics, which leads me to my second part of the answer, which would be like, yeah, I'd love to see completely new dungeons created all over the place. Um, there's really no like one area that I think sticks out above others that wasn't already utilized in Breath of the Wild. Some of the most interesting areas are like, the Thunder Plateau or, stuff like that. And like they already had their specific mechanics and quote unquote mini dungeons, which are the shrines in the original game. So, me personally, I'd like to see dungeons up in the sky, in Skyrule, as I like to call it. Because that would really utilize all of those new mechanics that are going to be coming out in Tears of the Kingdom. Um, of which we probably still haven't even scratched the surface of, to be honest. I mean, you just mentioned gluing together a submarine. I mean,
Yeah.
damn. I want to glue together a giant flying castle, and mark my words, I'm going to do it.
Or a digging machine.
Or a giant digging machine on the bottom of my castle, so that I can just plunder, wherever. Anyway, it's I don't know. I think that's kind of a cop out question or answer, like I was saying, but yeah, if they were gonna go for like a more nostalgic thing, I would love to see maybe the unearthing of the actual dungeons from some of the older games, the locations of which are largely already in the map. Um, but
That'd
obviously,
be sick.
as
That would
it
be
would be,
sick.
it would be stupid sick, probably way too good to be true, but it would be just stupid sick.
Just
Um,
imagine unearthing the shadow temple behind
that's what I'm
Kakariko. Everyone is
saying.
Ooh,
shocked. They're like, "Oh no, what the hell is all
fan
this?"
service.
And
So
Impa
I'm
just
really
randomly knows about it. She's like, I remember this. I was a
You
child.
were there? What?
I was there. I'm actually
Oh.
400.
hey, the Impa from Skyward Sword is like 2,000 years old, right?
That
Fair.
we don't know. We
Hella
don't
old.
know. It depends on how much time passes when you step into the giant cog.
Yeah, it's a little unconfirmed or it's never
I
explicitly
think
stated how long that
a lot of
time
people
period
say
is.
1,000 years, but
At least more
I'll
than
be
100.
yeah, I'll be honest. I've not really come up with my own definitive like headcanon about how long that time period was, but anyway, it's a long time. Either way, it's a
Hmm.
long time.
I did want to say really quick with the idea of going into Arbiter's ground again. It would be cool if you could get Death Sword as a weapon.
Oh my
That would be
God,
Oh
amazing.
yeah.
that would be so cool. And it would just like you do like a special charge attack, and the Death Sword Spirit just comes out and screams at people. Oh my
Aw.
God, I'd pee my pants, but it'd be amazing.
Worth it.
Worth it.
Wait,
Anyway,
wait, wait, wait.
I
All right.
will concede.
Crackpot conspiracy theory. Do the Sheikah just have like this stance they go into to live a long time? Because the Sheikah in Breath of the Wild do the same thing. I'm not done with that point. Like, how do they do that?
Well,
I know that. Oh,
They
sorry,
just
go
sit
ahead.
think
down,
Impa?
You go
crisscross
ahead.
applesauce, and they live forever.
I think it's like a mixture of things, one of which is crisscross, which is kind of a real life inspirational thing. We do have like monks that have actually self mummified themselves, and
Wow.
it's like
Mhm.
it is crazy. You have to eat like a certain diet to like dry yourself out, and then obviously it's like the epitome of self discipline to just sit there and not move, like you just sit there until you die. It's insane. Like, what if a fly lands on your nose and you got to itch? Nope. Too bad. You're mummifying yourself, buddy. You're just sitting there. But no, like I think Impa is like completely different because when in Skyward Sword, like because when she died, she like magicked away. So I'm pretty sure she just used
Hey, the
hocus
Sheikah magic
pocus.
away.
Yeah,
the monks
exactly.
in Breath of the Wild also magic away when they
That's
die.
true. It's all
Um,
magic, with or without the applesauce.
that's true.
No, it's not the
It's the
applesauce.
sauce. The
I think the
the
sauce.
sauce.
So
applesauce.
I think the sauce longevitifies the life. That's a
Yeah,
word now.
yeah.
Yeah.
so
Give us
I
more
raised
sauce. Sorry, go
I
ahead.
raised an idea regarding their mummification before in one of my videos, which granted are not as big as your guys' videos, but still.
Aw.
About the idea that the Sheikah shrines might be a type of simulation, a mental simulation,
Ooh.
Oh,
and
nice.
they themselves are just in that simulation.
So,
But
so that's why when you die in it, it's like you're dying in the Trial of the Sword. It's not like your physical body's actually dying; it's that you're dying mentally.
and it really makes sense because some of those locations are huge. Like,
Mm-hmm.
did they really burrow into underneath a mountain and carve out this one very specific location for the hero?
Knowing
Makes a
the
lot
Zelda
more sense.
series, yes.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think that's
But
very.
rationally, it makes no sense
Yep.
though. I like what you're saying, Pixel.
Mhm. Yeah, Trial of the Sword is like for sure an illusory realm. I think it's referred to as. So
Yeah,
I
Nintendo.
mean, that's
Somebody did
definitely like
a
a simulation of some kind,
Yeah,
or
Nintendo Black
equivalent.
Crisis and Zeltic both, I think, did their own separate videos on how one of them, I think NBC was theorizing that it was the Sacred Realm.
That's what I was going to bring up. But
Yeah, and then I actually they both might have said the same thing. It's been a while. Breath of the Wild's been out for 6 years, so you know.
Yeah.
Um,
hmm
but yeah, I think it's definitely been something that's been tossed around because it is strange. Like you were saying, some of those locations are freaking big, but then stuff like the Shrine of Resurrection, the entire thing just like moving down like an elevator.
right.
Um,
That was the one that I said wasn't a mental simulation.
Yeah, and I
That
think it makes sense
go ahead.
that wouldn't be because sorry to I'm not trying to interrupt. I'm just my brain.
You're good. You're good.
oh, he
But
interrupted.
brain goes. I'm sorry, but I mean, like Monster Maze had that video about the final trial with Monk Mask Koshia, how it's like meant to be like a training sort of environment for like the champions as a group rather than just for one person. And then of course you got the medical facility attached to it, which is the Shrine of Resurrection itself. So that makes sense for that not to be like some sort of simulation or I don't know if digital is the right word, but digital space is what I'm going with. That the rest of the shrines could absolutely be, and there's no because like even when you finish it, for example, you can just go back in and like any enemies that were in there will just like respawn as if nothing happened. The monks will just magic. They'll still be gone, but you can like walk up to their pedestal and then it teleports you out somehow. And you could say that's magic. Anything could be magic, but magic may just be
Magic is a cop
technology
out.
that we don't understand, right? So
Yeah, let me
there
take
is that.
this. Oh, sorry, I interrupted.
Oh,
My
I'm
bad.
done. I'm done. Please take it. I
Ooh.
just have a habit of
Yeah, I
talking
know.
and
Uno
throwing in
reverse
stuff.
card.
I reversed it on myself. It blew up in my face. Well, I was just gonna say, let me take this moment to just compliment the Sheikah of Breath of the Wild specifically for being like, "Ha, you thought it was magic, but it's technology that we also forgot. So it's essentially magic, but it's technology." Anyway,
Technomancy.
Yeah.
technomancy.
I like that word.
I still am so in love with the liquid transfer of data, like that concept. I
Oh
just
yeah.
whenever I see the animation of like downloading the Shikatara maps, I'm just like,
Oh
oh,
yes, snap. That's what you mean. Yeah,
I
shivers.
always
that's
want to
really
drink
good
it.
stuff.
That's amazing.
Some
I want to lick it. I want to like drink, like catch it in my mouth. And
I
If you
want
drink
the
it,
juice of
you'll
that.
become Vision
So-
from the MCU. You'll-
So I don't know about you guys, but I always play Breath of the Wild with a shirtless Link. And when that stuff
What?
splashes on him, I just wonder if that burns.
Hmm.
Anyhow,
I bet it feels good.
so
That's a very good
It's
question.
infecting, it stings.
Let's
All
go
right, Brett.
test it.
Go ahead, Brett. Let us know what your answer is.
Gee, I gotta actually talk now. Breakdown. Okay, so let me try and formulate my thoughts here. Where do I want dungeons to be? Okay. I think it'd be great to have more underground dungeons like the Great Plateau. Yeah, that's like my
That's
my
nice.
conspiracy theory like idea. The Great Plateau is a dungeon that's hidden in the game, and that I'd like to see more in that style put into Breath of the Wild. Yeah.
So are you talking about the Trial of the Sword?
Nope.
dungeon under there, or
think he's
just
I'm
talking
talking
the
about the whole
entire
about the
plateau.
play?
tutorial. I'm talking about the tutorial. I think that is a dungeon.
I mean, it
Okay.
makes sense.
You got 4 terminals. You got 2 bosses if you're playing on hard mode. You have these, I would say, mini bosses in the forms of like really powerful bokoblins that you have to fight at the beginning, and then the whole region is divided into these rooms for you to explore. They're just really open. So
I
think it's like a
I have
pseudo dungeon in a way, and that they'd be really cool to see more like that in the sequel, just underground or maybe in the sky, and it's like free roaming exploration dungeoning.
I have a feeling that the start of the next game is going to have Link in a sky island, very reminiscent in structure to the Great Plateau, where he has to, learn his new Zonai powers or arm powers if it is a Zonai artifact, which I think it is.
That's
Does
fair, and I mean Monster Maze did the exact same video.
does anybody remember way back when, before Breath of the Wild came out, when we were all still calling it Zelda U or whatever the hell
Zelda
they were calling it?
NX.
Back in the
Zelda
day.
NX, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
Does anybody remember back when they were promising exactly that? They said like there were leaks and stuff, and they were like, Nintendo reportedly says that dungeons are going to be so big and expansive
Oh my
that
gosh, I remember that all the time.
yeah, you remember that? You
Yes.
remember that? Yeah, I was gonna say that kind of sounds exactly like what you're talking about, which would be extremely
Yeah.
cool.
It would be.
Yeah, 'cause the
I
design
mean, my
beats
idea
were
is
like
pretty much the
no.
opposite of the captains over here. Captain Bergerson is saying he wants them to be more separate from the overworld, but I actually think that it'd be awesome to have dungeons that are more integrated with the overworld. And like
Kind
the
of like
lantern.
Elden Ring.
I have not played it, but I'll say yes to that. I was thinking more like the lantern dungeons in Twilight Princess, where you enter one way, and then you exit out the other end, and you're in a different part of the overworld.
Yeah,
Stuff like
and
that would be
actually,
really cool.
I was
Twilight
going
Princess
to bring
has
up.
great caves and stuff. So yeah, go on. pick
Twilight
something.
Princess caves, exquisite. I need more of that. Small caves as well
Exquisite.
need to be everywhere and replace shrines.
Well, what you were saying about interacting with the overworld reminds me of A Link to the Past, my personal favorite Zelda game,
Oh, that's a great
where
example.
in the desert area there are a few parts in like Death Mountain too, where you come out into the overworld and can get like a piece of heart or something. But I really like the idea of coming out of the dungeon back to the world and then having to go back in.
Yeah, the 3D games haven't done that as well, have they? The
The
2D games
only
are the ones that have kind of exceeded at
example
that.
Wind Waker does a couple times. It plays with it, like Dragon Roost Cavern. You come out and then you're sort of like on the side of the mountain, and there's
Mhm.
like a staircase. But it's really just like toying with the idea. It never really takes
Well,
the
it's
plunge to
never
do it
actually
properly.
out in the world.
Yeah,
It's a
it's just sort of
different like everything's a different model and stuff. If you were to fall off of the edge, you would just die. Like you wouldn't actually fall down into, the great sea, and
yeah.
the boat comes up like, Mike, what the hell are you doing? Get back
I
up
would
into
love
the
to see that.
volcano.
Hey, but Zelda
But
games
it
are great at giving
plays
you
with
the
the idea.
illusion that you can see the outside world at
Right.
least.
Even Breath of the Wild did that.
This is true.
Yeah, with
Yeah.
Master Monk Koshia,
And
like
all
his
of the
little
divine
platform up
beasts.
there.
That's true, yeah. That's an easier example.
I mean,
Yes.
I really hope that Koshia's platform is up in the sky and we
That'd be
can
cool.
just go land on it.
I want to go
And
have a
yeah.
picnic up there.
Oh, that'd be awesome. So yeah,
Bunch of
my
nefarious food.
my
to
thoughts
kind of
were that I
piggyback
would
off
think.
that.
Oh, sorry, I'm still
No,
interrupting people. My bad.
you do that, and then I'll piggyback because I was interrupting you. Actually,
No,
I'm
I was gonna summarize my thoughts. I'll do that when we're finished with all this.
All right,
With all the chatter.
to kind of piggyback off what you're saying, as well as like integrating the dungeons into the world. I think Breath of the Wild's Hyrule Castle is actually also a great example of that.
That's my second
That's kind of
favorite. I love that one.
So good, and I really feel like that was a great. I have a whole video about it just to plug myself. Haha. But I think that's
Ooh.
sort of a great realization of like how Breath of the Wild's open air gameplay structure, how you can model a dungeon that's kind of plays into that and plays into Breath of the Wild's strengths while still being like very immersive and very like its own area in a way. The like map screen sucks, but because it's so hard to like discern.
We just
the
needed
different areas,
a
but-
zoom.
we
needed a
did need a
zoom.
zoom, but that dungeon, like that dungeon, I call it a dungeon. People will argue if Breath of the Wild, if anything in Breath of the Wild counts. I will argue with them all day about it, but I think Hyrule Castle is just like a great sort of idea of like this is still a dungeon, but it's something that's wholly Breath of the Wild and
Very open air.
very open air and plays into Breath of the Wild's strength. but kind of to your point, like you can enter and leave the dungeon from basically any direction. You can like literally paraglide from the northwest and just enter into lockup through a literal hole in the wall and start
And then
the
you could
dungeon
even
there.
like flying machine your way over the castle and drop right on top of it. I mean, it's
Yeah.
completely open.
And just skip everything.
Exactly, and that totally plays into the game's strength, in which you can choose how much of the content there you do or do not want to interact with, and how much you want to engage with. Like whether if you want to like totally explore, you want to go through the lockup and the docks and Zelda's bedroom and all these different rooms and areas and explore as much as you want. You can do that, or if you want to just go straight to Ganon, you can do that too. And
Some
I
would
think
argue, of course, that is the very thing that makes them not dungeons. But there's some
That's
people, not me. Some people.
Yeah,
that's
not
totally
you.
the argument here.
Yeah, not
Some
me.
people, yeah.
I'm just devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some people would definitely argue that without the lock and key mechanic that we see in some of the shrines, it wouldn't count.
Locking keys are
I'm more-
necessary? I mean,
None of Child Link's dungeons in Ocarina of Time have any keys.
wait.
But they-
Not a single
but they
one of
do-
them?
Yeah,
But they
Deku
do
Tree,
lock off.
Dongo's Cavern, and Jabu Jabu's Belly have no locks or keys.
Well,
The
they
only-
have doors.
There are barriers.
Wow.
There are like doors that you need to like hit a switch to open, for example.
So it's like a
but
key mechanic, but
key.
it's not a key in and of itself. That's wild.
Yeah,
I love that.
I think the concept of doors is perhaps more important than the concept of specifically locked doors for dungeons.
Doors are
Because
overrated.
doors are overrated, yes, but doors imply rooms and puzzles and stuff like that. And when you can bomb jump over the entire 90% of all of the dungeon, you're skipping all them doors and all them rooms, and some people would have a problem with that.
Some people. Yeah.
All right. So the one that I picked out that I wanted to, I think would be a really good expansion into a dungeon. I had two, and I'm glad none of you picked it.
Oh wait.
The first one was going to be.
Oh crap! We're on to the next person. I didn't get to summarize my points. I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I
Go
just
ahead,
wanted
Brett.
to say, like, in conclusion, like, I think that we need more dungeons where you could enter and exit from multiple points. Like the Great Plateau is a tutorial, so you can't actually enter and exit. But like Hyrule Castle, and then kind of have this openness of the Great Plateau. I don't care where it is. I just think it'd be cool to have more like that.
Word.
Okay. So there were two locations I was thinking of. The first one is that giant spiral over in the Akala region that has a Sheikah shrine in it.
Ooh.
It's literally a zonite spiral.
Zonite
So
swirl.
yeah. But the one that I'd be far more interested in seeing would be the 8th hero and statue.
Oh,
If
yeah.
there was an
that's a
entrance
good one.
into a Gerudo-themed dungeon behind it. That's what I would like to see.
That's
Gave
a
me
really good
shivers,
pick.
man. Gave me chills. Gave me goosebumps. It was beautiful.
So are you thinking
I
like
mean,
the
could
whole
you-
statue moves and then like there's an entrance behind it, or like what are you thinking here with this? 'Cause I
So
like
if
going-
if I was playing with the idea, I would say while they were carving out the 8th statue, and why it's not with the others, is because they found an entrance to something old and ancient, and then stopped carving it out. So maybe you have to go down there and find a tier of the kingdom or whatever.
I like it.
Maybe that's where Ganon is. Who knows?
Oh, Numa, you listening? Take notes, bud.
I hope he is.
The game's
That'd be
finished,
great.
guys. He's not changing it.
It can always be
We
delayed.
don't need another delay.
It can always be delayed.
Game
Where's
is
the
done.
quote? Where's the
Throw in his
quote?
DLC.
But I think the quote is a rushed game is eventually a game, but a delayed game is a video game.
It's never a game.
It's never a game.
It keeps getting delayed. It's an enigma.
I love that. I need to use that.
Well, I'm glad that none of you picked Tingle Island as a
Oh,
dungeon
man.
location.
Actually,
That's-
that would
that's
be
the
cool.
hard
That's
mode
a good
dungeon.
spot. That's a
That's the
good
hard
spot.
mode. The ghost of Tingle hunts you through the dungeon.
Oh god.
Oh yes, we need that Tingle survival horror.
Tingle percentage
it.
when?
Yeah.
Ugh, and just showing up and stealing your rupees.
Imagine what a Tingle
just a
ghost
rupee at
would
the
look
end.
like. Those tights.
Ooh.
Mm.
All right. So let's go ahead and move on to the next question.
Da-da-da-da-dun.
Do you believe that dungeons should be accessible in any order?
Oh boy.
And Bread, you're starting this one off. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I'm going to go with what I said last time. I think there needs to be a mix of this, right? You need to have, like, it'd be nice if there was like one or two or maybe three that, like, if you go to them in a certain order, it's like really, really helpful. But you could do them out of order and it'll be fine. You just might like do the harder one first. And then outside of that, I think it's also great to have these optional mini dungeons scattered everywhere, which I would hope would be similar to the grottos in Twilight Princess. And those, it doesn't matter what order you do them in. You could do them however. Well, yeah, that was it.
Oh.
That was the whole thought. It was pretty concise this time.
Good thought.
It was.
That was it.
I like it.
I suppose it's a pretty black and white question, but
Yeah.
All right, Hyrule Gamer, what are your thoughts?
Okay. I'm definitely not the only person to talk about this idea, but the way that I like the most, but for how it could potentially be, is that, for example, like in older games, you'd have the first three dungeons as like a section of the game. You would do them in order, but then you'd have like the later dungeons, like I don't know, Ocarina of Time. You'd have the first three, and then the rest separately. And the way I saw or think it could work well is if, say, there's three dungeons that you can do in any order, but you can't access the later dungeons, which you could also do in any order, until those first three are done. And I think it could work well with how the game's looking to shape up, because it kind of looks like things in the world are happening at different times, and we don't really know what happens when. So it could potentially be like, I don't know, there's three dungeons available fairly early on in the game, and then the rest aren't available until, I don't know, say we're in the sky, or we're in the underground, or till the lab rooms shoot up to the sky or something. But I think they should be able to be done in any order, just I would like them to have sections, if that makes sense. Like a certain amount done in any order, then a next set done in any order.
Ooh,
Sure.
interesting.
And that sort of reminds me of, and it's too bad Wiley's not here, some of the Mega Man progression, where you take out, later on, it was after you take out so many of the bosses, particularly in the Mega Man X series, like there'd be a cutscene where you have to do some halfway point, and then you would have to go do the other ones.
Yeah.
Are you assuming we haven't played Mega Man X?
I have not. It is the best Mega Man,
'cause I
Mega Man
haven't.
game.
I
Yeah,
haven't
I-
either.
okay. It's a very fair assumption. I'm just making a point.
Because you would be right.
We are Zelda tubers here, not Mega tubers.
Oh,
They're
that's so
mega
cool.
Zelda tubers.
Mega tubers.
YouTuber sounds
Oh.
awesome.
Megatuber would be really cool, just for the name.
Oh yeah. I wouldn't make Mega Man content. I would just call myself that.
Yeah. Just put him in like your cover art and just be like,
Yeah, have like one
Got
detail
him.
just so you can get the name.
his
That's
little
probably what
cannon.
Dr. Wiley's doing right now.
All right, so next up, Captain Bergerson. Go ahead.
I actually have the exact same answer as HG, and that was like totally almost verbatim what I was gonna say, Adam. So we're just like still in sync from yesterday.
Damn, it's like the trivia.
it's perfect.
Oh my gosh. I'm gonna
I-
get curb stomped in that.
But that sort of progression style is exactly what A Link Between Worlds did, actually, where you have the first three
Yeah.
dungeons in Hyrule accessible, and then you get to Lorule, and you can do those dungeons in any order. And you can freely explore. I love that game. I think A Link Between Worlds is like such an underappreciated game because it's so.
I
like,
love.
I
still haven't
love A
played
Link
it.
to the Past. That's like the game that and Ocarina are like the games of my childhood. And then A Link Between Worlds was like such a nostalgia trip, but like it was also innovative and new and different at the same time as tickling my nostalgia, which is just like the best. Which is kind of what I hope Tears of the Kingdom kind of will be. But yeah, I think that sort of progression style worked really well for that game, and I think it would work well for a game as open as Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, where, like you said, we have like a few dungeons, like the first set of dungeons available freely to do in any order, and then some event happens or something happens, or maybe we encounter Ganon, and that's when he kicks our butt.
Yeah.
You know, or something happens, and then we have the rest of the dungeons accessible. Maybe even
Yes.
you could do it in like multiple sections, not even necessarily two. You could even do it in like 2 or 3 sections. But doing it that way would also help modulate the difficulty curve a bit, because and that's something A Link Between Worlds suffered from a little bit, was that because you could do those low rule dungeons in any order, none of them are really harder than the others. Like they're all harder
Hmm.
than the Hyrule dungeons, but they're none of them are like really that hard compared to each other. Like there's in A Link to the Past, it's like Turtle Rock is definitely harder than like, you know, the like Skull Woods dungeon, for example, because it's there's even though you could actually do those in a little, you have a bit of dungeon order flexibility in A Link to the Past, there's more of an implied order that they recommend. They like literally number them on your map. Um,
Right, right.
A Link
And
Between Worlds doesn't, and because of that freeness, they sort of toned down the difficulty, which I kind of don't want them to do in Tears of the Kingdom. I kind of want this to be like a hard game, so, so some people will disagree with, but yeah,
It needs to be
I think
accessible to kids, but also it needs to be hard enough for us older people to kind of appreciate it as well and have a challenge.
exactly, yeah, and I think
Adding
if you
options,
break
please.
it up, options is always good. I'm always here for options. But
And
yeah, if you
don't
break
lock
it
it
up
behind
into
finishing the
segments,
game.
those first 3 dungeons or whatever could be easier, and then you have the next set of dungeons and they can be more challenging, and then you have the next set of dungeons and you have that freeness still, but then you can still modulate the difficulty and have the difficulty curve sort of progressively get harder, basically. Anyways, I'm done. That's my thought. Shout out Hyrule
I
Gamer.
I like it.
I did want to piggyback that a little just by saying, because you brought up A Link Between Worlds, one of my favorite games, and if you look at my picture, you might notice that I have the lovely Princess Hilda on my
Yeah.
wall over here.
Oh yeah.
But that being said, I thought that the open nature they did with A Link Between Worlds, with the second half of the game in low roll, was a
Mhm.
good compromise for what people have come to expect.
Mhm.
I have to echo what you were saying, though, that the difficulty of those dungeons was lower, and I was really happy when I got to the end of the game because then it felt like it suddenly got challenging
Mhm.
instead of just here's a bunch of intro dungeons or mid dungeons that are kind of interchangeable.
Mhm.
That being said, let's move on to Bandit. What are your thoughts?
So I'm going to take this opportunity to make enemies, cause divisions between us, and
All right.
generally have a good. No, I'm just kidding. But this is definitely a bigger topic for me. I don't know if it has to be necessarily, but it is. And that topic is linearity versus non-linearity in general, and whether or not I like them in my games or not. And I think that many years ago, because a lot of people, a lot of gamers were uh, always just unhappy with having to do things, like having to do the tutorial first before whatever, or like the amount of people I saw start Breath of the Wild and like see, the old man down there and go, nope, I can do whatever I want, and then like immediately run in the opposite direction because they were like, haha, this game is supposed to be open, and stuff like that. It is astounding. I mean, I have personal friends, there are streamers, so clearly people are very wowed by the notion of just go anywhere, do what you want, and that's great. Now, that being said, I'd like to. This is where we're gonna make some enemies. I Breath of the Wild is not my favorite Zelda game by
Where's my
a
rifle?
long
Where
shot.
did I leave it?
Yeah, you're gonna
Where's my
have to.
musket? Where's my
Yes.
musket?
You get,
Yes.
what state are you shooting from, sir? You're gonna need a long
Uh,
scope, a long barrel.
I'm like on the coast of
Yeah,
Cuba right
east or
now.
west. I'm pretty equidistant from both here in Texas, so
Okay.
take
I'll
your
just
shot.
I'll shoot a flintlock musket somewhere in your general direction.
Yeah, just do like buckshot that just covers the whole state. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, wait, what was I saying? Oh yeah,
You said you were making enemies.
we're making enemies because Breath of the Wild is not my favorite Zelda game for that express purpose. I like Zelda games, or at least I always did, growing up and whatever, all the way up until, Skyward Sword and whatever, because of the progression of the story. Of, this happens, you go here, next thing happens, you go to the next place, and, blah, blah, blah. Now, of course, it works sometimes where, like Hyrule Gamer was saying, you could have, like, little pockets of linearity. You know what I mean? Like you have to do this, and then you do have like a you're locked out of the rest of the dungeons before you do 3 of them or whatever. And I think that, that could work very well. Personally, I enjoyed the open world gameplay of the old open world games like Oblivion or Skyrim and stuff like that.
Fallout.
The games that really made that genre a hit, you know? And the reason why I liked them is because you always had your actual linear main story that was unfolding. But the thing that made it open world is you always had the opportunity to go do side quests and side stories and explore different areas of the map and whatever the hell else you wanted to do. On that notion, Zelda games have actually done that ever since. You know, um, ever since like A Link to the Past really took off. You had the opportunity to go elsewhere, collect that other piece of heart, whatever, and then resume the main storyline whenever you felt like it. That kept things linear, but also kept things open. And that's my personal favorite style. So to me, do I believe that dungeons should be accessible in any order? I guess yes and no. I mean, like I was just saying, it could work in if the dungeons weren't intrinsically tied to the progression of the main story, then yeah, sure. You have to go collect the 6 tiers of the kingdom, and you can go get them in whatever order, and then the story progresses. Sure, I'm perfectly happy with that. But if they took say, Ocarina of Time, and they had these dungeons that were set up to where the story progresses after each one, then I'd rather have that all of a sudden. So really, the question to me is more about like what is going to be the setup of Tears of the Kingdom's story, rather than do I want dungeons accessible in any order. Sorry.
I I see.
So what it sounds like to me is that you feel there's a compromise to be had
There is a
between
compromise.
linear.
What the biggest
Linearity is not
the
inherently
biggest
bad. I agree.
well, yeah, the biggest complaint about Breath of the Wild was the story. And I'm not saying that like people by far hated Breath of the Wild. Not at all. I'm just saying like the minority of people that were, you know, perhaps a little underwhelmed by it. If you pay attention to their comments, it's normally about the story.
Interesting.
And
No,
yeah,
that's
and
fair because the
so
story basically unfolds a century before the game actually happens.
right,
And then you're
right.
just like a
Story
bookmarker
concept.
at the end of it. Like you're not even in the
Right,
story.
Go
you're
You're
not
just
clean up
making
finishing it
any
out.
go
new
clean up the pieces.
yeah, you're not making any new legends. You're just learning about the legends of 100 years ago.
Which is
And
really
that takes its
cool,
toll.
but it
It is
needs
it
to
is
be
cool.
both. If we had both, it would have been better.
Right. It's always been both in Zelda games. You always have the legend of the ancient hero, but yet you're facing Girahim, or you're facing,
Well, it's usually pretty simple in
whatever.
those games. It's like, yeah, there was a hero 100 years ago. It's like, well, what did they do? It's like, I don't know, something. They help
It's
people.
true. It's
In this
true.
Did
game,
you
we
I
do
finally
think
had
we
like a
could
really rich
lean
previous story.
Yeah, I think we could lean more into it, while not, removing completely either aspect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think, but anyway, that's my more broad answer, just because I have felt the way that I do about linearity for a while. I am one of those people, if you will, that my one of my very few gripes with Breath of the Wild was, a bit of the lighter story,
Hmm.
and but I do feel that it was directly compromised a bit, um, for more of this open, non-linear, do whatever you want type gameplay, which is beautiful. Okay, I'm not trying to say it's not beautiful. Um, it's just different. That's all. It's
Mm-hmm.
subjective.
So
Okay.
I wanted to, I'm trying to figure out exactly what kind of thing you're looking for. And I know this is already going on long, but I'll try and make this quick. So, like, Bandit, are you saying, like, you want more linearity in the open world or more open in the linear?
I think I want more linearity in a story,
In the
and
story, just
that
the
would
story
then,
specifically. Okay.
well, yes, and then the story would then dictate how we access the open world.
Okay.
Like I was
That
saying
makes
in
sense.
yeah, in like, like it could complement like your idea for dungeons very well. Like
Mm-hmm.
if there was this, there were these things that we have to do the 3 dungeons and the 6 dungeons, whatever. Um, and those dungeons were all open, new concept dungeons that they could definitely bring to Tears of the Kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, those ideas could coexist perfectly, and old nostalgic dogs like myself would be perfectly happy. So yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
As a point,
And
though, I think. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say and make a little bit of a joke of sure, progression based on dungeons, like similar to what Adam was saying, would make sense. Maybe you have to do 3 of the dungeons, finding Tears of the Kingdom, then
Mhm.
Ganondorf attacks Gerudo Town and gets hydrated off those noble pursuits.
Mm.
Then you have to go do more.
Yeah.
Oh
Something like
man,
that.
that would be so insane if like they dropped that in Breath of the Wild, foreshadowing like noble pursuits are going to be
hilarious.
like Ganondorf's, you know, because he is of age, I would say.
He
He's a little
probably
bit
is.
of age, just
Looks
A
a
little
little bit
bit, a
older.
little bit.
But kind of a counterpoint though, as long as they don't lean too hard into the sort of linear story progression, because sometimes that can kind of clash with the open world. And an example I'm going to bring up is Red Dead Redemption 2, which is a game I love, by the way. I really do like that game, but I'm going to criticize it heavily now. But the thing is that like that game is marketed as like this big, expansive open world game, and it is a huge and expansive. But one thing Breath of the Wild has like as a strength over it is that like if you start a second save file or like a new save file on Red Dead 2, for example, and you're like, oh, I want to go all the way to Saint Denis, which is one of the later game areas, just to like play around. You can ride your horse, you can go all the way there, but you're literally gated out from doing anything there. You can't even access some of the shops there until you
Wow.
reach that part of the story where you're allowed to now. And that, like,
Hmm.
when I first played that game, I didn't even think to go through. I was so immersed into it. But then when I started a second save file, I was hugely disappointed by that. Like, I was like, I can't do anything outside of where the story wants me to do. So what's the point of this huge open world, right? Like now these two ideas of here's your really immersive linear story and here's your really immersive open world. Now these ideas are clashing because I can't travel, I can't explore, do side content outside of what I'm allowed to do or what the story writers decided I should be doing right now. And I
The
think that's
story
one
writer, the
strength.
story writers know best. They know
They know
where you
best.
need to go. Yeah.
And no, the
Have-
story of that game is so good. So don't get me wrong. Like I actually really
No
like that game a
spoilers,
lot.
please.
It's good. I'm just gonna say that. But
I have you played Elden Ring by chance?
I actually have not. So oops.
I have not yet either. It's on my list, but I know it will consume me.
I
Well,
see. So
I
if
you
have-
brought
anybody
up the-
spoils a Bandit game, then he'll spoil that.
Oh,
Yes,
okay,
I'm just
fair.
gonna spoil. I'm gonna find one game that's on your wish list and just look up all the spoilers and just post it all over your Twitter. No, I'm just kidding.
Mutually
But,
assured
but-
destruction.
Yes, mutually assured
Yeah.
guns,
Perfect.
gunfire.
No, I won't spoil it for you, but I think Breath of the Wild had a strength in that. Like, if for example, like you got off the plateau, King Rome tells you go to Kakariko Village next, and you ignore him and go to Hateno Village. You can go to the shops there. You can interact with Purah there. You can do side quests there all you want, and there's even alternate dialogue for having not
I,
met Impa
I was
first.
going to bring that up.
Yeah,
If
there's no
you-
limitation there. It's just
Yeah.
you can do that. That's fine.
and
There's some.
I like that. I like that about. So there's a compromise to be had for sure, as long as those ideas don't clash like in Red Dead. I'm gonna stop talking now. Pixel.
Okay.
No, it's
I
okay.
did
I
want to
have
say.
a rebuttal whenever you're done.
I did want to say I do love how there is alternate dialogue for if you do that, particularly with Prince Sidon.
Yeah, he's like,
well,
"Whoa,
Yeah.
how'd you
Yeah.
get here? I'm so hot."
Yeah.
Sorry, what were we talking about?
I believe you wanted a rebuttal, Bandit.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, it's not really a rebuttal. I was just gonna say that's a good point. Because if the entirety of the open world is compromised, even if it is that one town, that's gonna leave a negative taste in people's mouths. I get that.
Mhm.
Elden Ring, Game of the Year winner last year, beat Ragnarok, which is amazing. It did a lot of things right. And that's one of the things that I think it did right because Elden Ring is a huge open world game where you can go anywhere you want. I'm sure even people who haven't, played it have heard that about the game. But it has these certain pockets, and in fact, half of the entire map that's actually locked off to you at the start of
love
the
that.
game.
I've not
But the
played it, but I
thing
love it
is-
already.
Yeah, well, but the thing is, though, it's not necessarily a story progression that you have to do to unlock these areas. There are lore reasons why you can't access something, and so you have to remedy it per lore. Like, for instance, there's a magical academy castle, kind of like Hogwarts, where you have to enter in order to obtain a key. And this key will allow you to ascend a giant, like, because you can't climb like in Breath of the Wild. That's still one of the great things about Breath of the Wild, is that everything is like you can climb it, like it's amazing. But you can't do that in Elden Ring. So there are still some, like, you can't just ascend a giant cliff, for instance. And they use that to be like, oh, you can't go up there yet because you don't have this key for this elevator. But if you want to get this key for this elevator, you have to go into this castle, and this castle is magically locked. And if you want to enter that castle, then you have to go to steal this seal from this dragon and stuff. Like, it's multifaceted, of course, and you don't have to do it that way, which is the reason why I'm bringing it up. You can do it the open world way yourself, figure it out, go find that dragon, go find that castle, whatever. You can do it. There are several side quests that'll lead you to it naturally. The main story will also lead you to it naturally. Uh, it's a very unique take, and it's one that you can achieve on your own. So I was gonna ask, like, for instance, in that Red Dead town, what if there was a
Mhm.
lore reason why you couldn't access it, and you could remedy it yourself, regardless of following the main story? It was a linear portion of open world gameplay, if you will.
Sounds like you want a Metroidvania then. It's because
Oh,
that's basically it. Like
I
in
love.
one of my favorite games ever, Super Metroid, for example. You've got these huge open explorable areas, and then it's
A little
like,
less
oh, you can't.
backtracking, but yes.
Maybe less backtrack, but it's like, oh, you can't reach that area because you literally can't jump high enough, for example. And then you find
Right.
an upgrade that lets you jump high enough, and that's like a very basic example. But
Right, right,
yeah, I
right.
mean
And
that
and
kind of
it's
stretch is
the
great.
obviously the nitty-gritty, which doesn't really matter, is, obtaining like a personal power up as opposed to like a world item or something. But
Mhm.
like, yeah, the concept's the same. Like you're saying, yes, you pass these areas that you're like, I really wish I could get there. But you still have to do something to achieve getting there. To me, I think that personally, like that's kind of a sense of achievement to me.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and in like technically Breath of the Wild has that. Like, if there is a giant freaking cliff that you just want to climb up, at the start of the game, you're not going to have enough stamina for that. You can go farm a bunch of like stamina dishes and maybe muscle your way up. But you'll probably have to go do certain things first.
Mhm.
You'll probably have to either find a way around or level your stamina up quite a bit. So I mean, the sense of like obtain working for something, um, I think is good. I
Yeah,
think
I
that it
agree with that.
has, yeah, I think it has a place in open world games.
It sounds like a very similar. It sounds like you're kind of in the same camp as like the Zelda 1 exploration, where maybe like a third of the map is locked off until you kind of figure out, like, oh, wait a minute, I can go this direction in the Lost Woods, but you have to figure out the mystery first, which you can do at the beginning of the game. It's just you got to
Right,
figure it out.
right,
Mhm.
Um,
exactly.
it's
You
not
just,
like there's
you could do it
necessarily
at
a
any
specific
point.
item that's going to stop you. It's just you a specific item, if once you get it, will help you get over
Yeah,
there.
So
and that
so
by
speaking
definition is linear. Sorry, go on.
so speaking of Zelda 1 and how they locked you off with certain items like the step ladder to get across rivers, that is going to lead into what I was going to say, which is I am in favor of linear progression. I
Yay, I'm not
believe
alone.
that you should have to enter the dungeon in some order. I do like the idea of like accessing pockets of them, 3 dungeons at a time or something like that. But I wanted to bring up dungeon items is how they typically sealed people's progression off before.
Mhm.
And I've been hearing in our Zelda community that Link and his mystic arm are going to get ruins or some sort of abilities throughout the game that presumably give him more ability to access things. So the seeds for progression are in play to lock off areas. Maybe you need a Zonai rune to enter the stormy areas. Maybe his diving power is the only way to reach certain islands, and you have to unlock that, or will unlock that partway through the game.
Hope so.
Perhaps, perhaps the tiers of the kingdom are just Zonai powers that you gain throughout the course of the game. We don't really know.
Mhm.
But if they were going to go with a linear model, I think that's probably how they would do it.
Beautifully said.
I
Yes.
do hope that there are traditional dungeons like we've seen in the other game, although I'm starting to lose hope for that with the most recent trailer. But still, that's what I want.
Yeah, sounds good. I just want to be able to dive.
I
Diving
don't
is
think
great.
diving's that big a deal if we could do the other stuff we did in Breath of the Wild.
Bro, I want to dive.
We want to swim.
I think swimming's overrated. We need more
We
ships is
want
what
to
we need.
swim.
I want
That too. Why
Subnautica
not?
just slapped onto the bottom of, the world of Hyrule.
No! No.
Just slap it down there. I'm gonna make myself a sea moth and like chase down some Hylian loaches. Bring those back too.
Oh, yes, bring fishing back, though, please.
Yeah, absolutely.
Please.
I'm kidding
Wait.
about the Subnautica bit, just in
Hey.
case anybody didn't know.
You're not-
your
I
point,
did
What?
I did plenty of fishing in Breath of the Wild with chalk arrows. Works very
Chalk
well.
arrows, that's the best way to fish.
Hey, we're
Cough,
not talking
bombs,
efficiency. It's
cough.
not about efficiency. It's about nostalgia. Okay.
Yes, it is absolutely
Fair
about
point.
nostalgia.
Fair.
I want
My
my fish
construction
down.
is I never fish in Twilight Princess unless I have to.
You
I
have
just
to
get whatever.
once.
No.
I
Twice.
have to once.
Reek
Yeah,
fish.
it's
Reek
for
It's
the
fish.
cat.
for a
not
cat.
me.
You gotta
It's for a
appease
cat,
that
it's
little
good.
jerk
Important.
cat. I will never
Appease
forget Link's face when the cat takes it.
That is a memorable moment.
Absolutely.
But yeah, the reek fish is necessary too.
Oh yeah,
That's
twice.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
true.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
true.
This is true.
Don't forget that, guys. It reeks.
It,
It reeks.
it
Stinks.
does
All
reek.
right, so let's go ahead and move on to the third and final question. What classic dungeon boss would you like to see return? And let's just ignore Gleeok because he was in the trailer, or at least there's a multi-headed dragon in the trailer. So let's ignore him for right now.
Oof.
Bandit, go ahead and start us off.
Man, you're starting off with the Rambler. Oh no.
Oh,
I'm just
yes.
kidding. It's actually good that we're that I'm starting off so that nobody can take my boss from me. Well, I mean, I think that the one that could just fit the most and that like has a place in a Zelda game just based on who they are would be Goma. I mean, hello.
Ooh.
That's a good
Goma's
pick.
Goma is like a staple of 3D Zeldas. Ocarina of Time, boom, Goma. Wind Waker, boom, Goma. Twilight Princess, boom, Goma.
Zelda 1.
Zelda, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's
Well,
it's
it's not
a
Goma.
original
I
boss.
think it's called something else in Zelda 1, isn't it?
No, it's Goma.
No,
No,
it's
it's
Goma
Goma.
too.
It-
It is a
that's
Goma.
straight up.
Okay, yeah, it is.
Goma.
That's where the name comes from.
Yeah, so I mean, it's obviously it
That's
has
the
ties
OG.
all the way. Yeah, it's an OG boss, which would already tie in with like the different OG bosses such as Gleeok that they're bringing back, and OG enemies, like Lionel's and stuff.
Moblins.
That they already, yeah, Moblins and stuff, and that they already brought back in Breath of the Wild. So I don't know. I think that a really cool new take on like an arachnid, and technically speaking, the Scorpion, I forget what it's called in a Skyward Sword, was like an evolution of the concept of Goma.
Moldarak.
Yeah, Moldarak, yeah. Now, obviously, Moldarak and Goma are completely different names and therefore different species, but still, it's an arachnid with vulnerable eyes. So it's pretty much Goma for Skyward Sword. So Breath of the Wild is actually the oddball out in not having like an eyeball boss, if you will.
Oh, hey, you're right. There aren't.
I mean, there's Hynexes or Hynixes, whatever, all over the
Oh,
place,
yeah.
but they don't count. They're not arachnids. They're just big bokoblin dudes.
Just big. Oh, yeah.
Actually,
Although
I can't
now
say
we
that
have
anymore.
big boss. Yeah, we have the
Exactly.
big boss ones now.
There's that
Dang.
big,
Big
the actual
limbs.
big bokoblin. I want to see one of them. Like, I'm gonna stage a fight between one of them and like a Hynux.
Ooh,
Just see, yeah, just slap each
Yeah.
other with trees.
Yeah.
Just see who's the last man standing. Anyway, but yeah, a Goma would be cool. I don't care if it's an actual 8-legged spider or if it looks more in line with like a centipede, like Wind Waker. Man, imagine like a giant, like if you're on one of the Sky Islands in Skyrule, and you have this giant Goma centipede like scouring that can crawl around the island, and you can only fight it like on the top side. I don't know. That'd be pretty cool.
That would be so cool. Goma's a great boss, and
It's
and
classic, right? And I
I
think it
kind
could
of hope they
return.
go more with like Ocarina of Time. That's like peak Goma design for me because it's so like clearly an arachnid, but he's also like she's so intimidating and like really unique design. Like it's
She
not
is
very.
intimidating, right? I'm not alone in
Yeah,
I
that.
mean, the
I
Twilight
do.
Princess one is
I-
also pretty intimidating.
Oh yeah. Oh wait,
So
that's just
yes,
straight up like, hey, are you afraid of
but it's a
spiders?
spider.
There's a giant
Like,
spider.
So
yeah, that's my
It's so
favorite.
generic. That's my problem. Like I feel the boss. That's like my least favorite boss fight in Twilight Princess in a game that has
Oh god.
otherwise really fun,
Just slap
unique
bread down, why
bosses.
don't you?
And they're just like spider.
I'm crying over you
And
guys.
that's it. It's just spider. And I love that
Well, that's the
Ocarina
fun
has
part.
like
The
this
fun part
really
is that it's like a
unique
cliche
design.
boss. It's like, yay, finally, cliche boss time.
It is the most
So-
satisfying boss. You get to literally smash it to smithereens.
And then
It
the
is
plot
so
twist at the
satisfying.
end with it being like a weird little eyeball thing is kind of funny.
Yeah, and that unique track that only plays right there when you're chasing it down. It's like a real, I don't know how to describe it. It's a cute sounding boss theme. Anyway,
It is.
I did
memorable.
want to say that since you brought up Goma in Ocarina of Time, I really like how they make you use the camera at the start of it to
Yeah.
initiate the fight.
Mhm.
Ooh.
Linear.
That's immersive.
Cough, cough. Yes.
I mean, that's a puzzle essentially. It's a puzzle to start the fight.
It's a linear puzzle, but yes.
I mean,
But it forced you to learn a mechanic. I like
did.
that.
It did.
Yeah.
It's true.
And also to like just be aware of your surroundings. Like you can't just like run in and start fighting. Like
Oh,
you
we
have
could
to,
talk for hours about how Ocarina of Time naturally teaches you how to play the game.
It's so
It's
good.
beautiful.
So good.
Well, for now, let's move on to Bread. What classic enemy or a boss do you want to see?
King Bublin. Not necessarily him, but a boss like him that is reoccurring throughout the game.
And like an individual.
Yeah, like a one who's like the mustache twirling villain that wants to stop us and fulfill Ganon's plan, but might not be able to quite match Link's skills.
That
I always love
Girahim.
that dynamic. It's so fun.
You know what?
And
I
You know what's so
I was
great
gonna
about
say
that boss?
Garaham.
Girahim is very
Garahim's another
similar.
example.
But he's basically the King Bulblin of Skyward Sword.
I love
I don't
that fight.
care if he's like a sword dueler or what. I just want somebody that's like that.
Yeah.
Far more
that's good.
fashionable.
You know
I'd
what
have
works
to say.
so well about King Bulblin is that every time you encounter him, he learns from your last encounter. So the first time you fight him, right, you knock him off the bridge with your sword. So the next time you encounter him, he's got 2 big shields to block your sword attacks. And then, you know, you knock him off using arrows instead. And then he's like, okay, mounted combat's not working. I'm gonna trap you in a burning building and then try and just take you on with brute force. And that doesn't work. Like he adapts every time that you encounter him, and it's like so subtle, but it's so brilliant, and that feeds into that sense of rivalry because he's like really trying to figure out how to take you down.
Yeah.
He's, like,
Whereas
really-
Are
Girahim,
you
it's just
saying-
like Girahim is just like I will become more powerful. It's like okay, well, I mean, I guess that
Yeah.
works.
Personally, I was
So-
waiting for him to show up in the horseback battle with Ganondorf. Because like I was the first time I went through that game when he's like, "Hey, I follow the strong side now," and he gives you the key, and Midna's like, "Whoa, he talks." Anyway, it's like it's understood that he's a good guy now. You know what I mean? And I was like, "Oh, what's the payoff with this gonna be? Is he gonna like show up somewhere?" And it's like, and he's he's
That
gonna
would've been-
do something, and then he'll just look at Link and nod, and Link will nod back, and then we'll whatever. But no, he just kind of runs away. What a coward.
It would have been nice
Baby.
to see him. It would have been nice to see him, like, I don't know, end up sacrificing himself to help Link at the end.
Some sort of payoff for his grand character arc.
I feel like Twilight Princess has that problem with like having really cool characters and then not quite utilizing them often enough.
I'm sorry,
just-
Adam.
That's just generally that game.
I'm sorry, Adam.
Getting
I-
crying
Hey,
in
I
the
love
corner.
Twilight
I love
Princess,
Twilight
I do,
Princess,
but like
yeah.
there's too many characters that they bring up, and then I'm like, wow, I'd love to see more of this guy or girl, and then it's like, well, okay, never mind, I'm not going to see them again.
No, you're actually
Everybody
gonna help
forgets
Ilya
Ilya
recover.
exists. Yeah.
You
like,
actually don't have
before-
to regain her memories for her. You can completely ignore her.
Honestly, she doesn't deserve it.
That's an optional thing. It's an optional.
She doesn't deserve it.
Doesn't deserve it.
It's a fresh start for her.
It's better for her not to remember because I don't remember.
She's gonna pull a Spider-Man.
Ooh.
Oh wait, I don't want to spoil that. Never mind.
Uh,
Oh no.
Somebody
it.
out there knows what. Okay, Adam knows
Yeah.
what I'm talking
why
about.
did you do that? No.
Now we're all gonna cry.
Ridiculous.
I'm not
So-
talking. Okay, sorry. For once.
All right, so let's move on to Captain Burgerson.
Yeah,
Which
sorry.
classic enemy do you want to see return?
Well, actually, Bandit stole my answer. I was gonna say Gomo.
Oh,
It was so good.
stealing
But
again.
I'll try.
I am a bandit, you know.
try and quickly
It's
think of
kind
something
of, you know.
I'm proud
There's
of you.
so many good bosses.
One bandit to another.
So many good bosses in the Zelda series. Trying to think some of my favorites. I really like okay, and it doesn't have to be exactly this boss in particular, but Odolwa from Majora's Mask is one of my favorite
Ooh.
bosses. No, scrap that. Actually, Kaloctos from Skyward Sword, best boss, 10 out of 10. You steal his sword, you beat him down with it. It's amazing.
And in a game like Breath of the Wild, where you equip weapons constantly, it would work out very well.
Yes, it would, wouldn't it? No, I love that boss actually. Actually, for completely different reason than why I like Odolwa, which is because there's so many different ways to fight Odolwa, which is awesome. At least in the N64 version. But yeah, Kaloctos is great, and I love that sort of ancient automaton, like I was gonna say architectural style of it. It's not architecture; it's a machine, but that sort of like visual identity that he has is so striking and unique. And I think that would be a really good fit for like things we find up in these Skyrule, as Bandit's calling it. I really like that term.
It's a good name.
Hyrule.
All these ancient and cool things we're gonna find up there. Like it doesn't have to be exactly Kaloctos, but something like that. And he does like evolve throughout the fight, but also just like the sort of identity of that fight is like turning your something like turning your enemy's weapon against them, or turning your weakness into your strength, basically by disarming your opponent and using their weapon against them. And that totally would play into like the strength of this gameplay style that they've started with Breath of the Wild. I think that'd be awesome. Yes, that's my
Beautiful.
answer. Thank you.
Beautiful.
All right.
You
Becoming
like
my
the
pet
big
dog.
humanoids, don't you?
I just like the big boys.
The big boys that just step up with like a giant ass sword. Oh, sorry, giant sword.
I was gonna say Goma because she's awesome, but you already did it so well. So
Goma with the sword.
heck yeah, Goma with a sword. That's the answer.
You 8 swords.
8 swords.
The more
That's
the merrier.
Does it just fly around then?
Oh god, a flying Goma with 8
Flying
swords.
Goma with 8 swords.
We're spiraling.
Mothula, and then it's Go Mothula.
Oh,
That's
we got
what
the
it is.
Godzilla, the Godzilla drop up in here. Gojira.
No, Mothula.
Oh
Is
wait,
a boss
no,
in
never
Linkin Park.
mind. Edit that part out. I'm a
Just edit
failure.
that.
I'm a
Edit that.
failure.
You
I
combine
was thinking Mothra.
Very
You're not a
similar.
failure,
I'm pretty sure
Bandit.
Mothra, it's the same freaking monster from
I'm
Godzilla
pretty
and
sure it's
Zelda.
like named that as homage to Godzilla, to be honest.
Well,
I don't
Godzilla is
have
like a
source for
freaking
that.
way of life over in Japan.
Exactly.
It's like it's huge, but anyway.
I don't have a source.
All
for
right.
that, but I'm
So
assuming.
how about you, Hyrule Gamer? What is your one classic boss that you would like to see return?
Okay. I know we said we were going to avoid the Gleeok on the bridge, but can it still be a dragon of some kind?
No.
Sure. I mean,
Say
Aquamantis was
Okay, yes.
He's gonna say it.
Aquamantis was in the first game as well, and that's just a single-headed dragon.
Okay. Then in that case, the one classic older boss that I want to return. Are we saying classic as in like how old? Just any game before Breath of the Wild? Or?
It could be preferably like a recurring one or something. I'm just thinking
okay.
older, just an older boss.
I wanted to go with Argorok from Twilight.
I knew it.
Princess.
Knew it.
Yeah.
I knew
I
it.
knew it.
Yeah, who saw it coming? Yeah.
But we need claw shots.
It's a good boss though. It's like it's not hard, but it's so fun. And if you can climb on it in Breath of the Wild, you can climb things.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I mean, there's definitely going to
Go.
be some sort of like new mechanics, especially in the sky. And like, ever since there's been a sky, I've been wanting some sort of dragon battle up there. And Argorok screams inspiration for me in that regard.
Yes.
It kind of reminds me of the corrupted Nehru battle. Just talking about
kind of like
dealing
that,
with.
yeah. Just a lot more aggressive than that would be my only preference.
Yeah, I mean, the corrupted Nehru battle isn't really a battle. It's more like putting down
it's
dogs.
more like
It's
you're
too easy.
chasing it and shooting it. It doesn't really go for you. I'm thinking of a dragon battle that like this dragon wants you. It wants to eat you. I don't care. It doesn't
Yeah.
like you.
Oh yes.
I want something fierce in the sky to fight. And who knows? Maybe the one on the Great Bridge of Hylia might go into the sky at some point. But
Wait,
just
does it have wings?
something. I'm pretty
It
sure
has
it
I
has
don't
wings.
think
wings.
now.
Doesn't
has
it
Looking
have
up
wings.
right
wings?
now. Let's see.
It has wings. I can confirm. You
Oh
gotta
my
say
Okay.
for it,
god.
but
We're gonna
you
be
got
flying
So the one,
around, and then it's just gonna
now
take off.
since we're talking about Gleeok, one of its key features is when you destroy a head, the head detaches and flies around.
Ooh, that'd be tough.
So I'm not sure how many of the listeners are familiar with the original Gleeoks that you encounter. Like the first one you encounter, there's 2 heads, and towards the end of the game, you encounter one with 4 heads. But it's difficult because the heads fly around when you kill them, and you need to kill all the heads in order to kill the boss.
Mhm.
So the idea that first that this Gleeok has wings, and second that
Yeah.
there's a big emphasis on flying and freedom of movement in the environment, that could get really annoying really quick.
Well, you
Agreed.
also have those new snazzy homing arrows, you know.
Oh, that's true.
That's true.
For those of you who are bad at pointing your bow.
Don't target me like that. I'm just kidding.
Ooh.
Okay, I'm going to talk about the one that I want to return since it's my turn next. Or were you done, Adam?
Yeah. No, I'm done. Dragon.
Okay.
That's it.
Dragon.
Yeah.
Good answer.
So the one that I would like to see is actually specifically a mounted Iron Knuckle. The ones that we saw in Zelda 2. I always thought that it was a really cool looking boss. So much so that I made an art project. I have on my wall of one. But, Iron Knuckles aren't in Breath of the Wild that we've seen. I would like to see an Iron Knuckle. I would like to see a mounted one. Preferably on like a floating ghost horse. But still, that's a cool visual to me. That's all I got there.
I know this probably isn't going to be edited in, or maybe it is going to be edited in, but man, this is the third freaking time that I'm plugging Elden Ring. But mounted Iron
Elden Ring
Knuckle,
soup.
are you? Yes, absolutely. I accept that.
You're now a
But,
YouTuber for Elden Ring. Get
Yeah,
out.
well, I was for a little bit there.
It's true. Wait a minute. Oh no.
But
It's
but
too close to
anyway,
home. My bad.
I'm just gonna post that right there for you guys to. Oh no, it didn't come through. Okay, what about this one?
Uh-oh.
There.
Ooh.
That's like the
Lovely.
first
Boy.
one of the first bosses in the game. It's the Sentinel. It's a giant armored dude on a giant armored horse, and I just feel like that would be kind of similar to like a 3D take, on like a mounted Iron Knuckle, like you were saying.
I
And I think it would
will
be so cool.
I will go ahead and overlay it on the video when I'm editing it.
Oh, cool.
But yeah.
Dope.
Is there anything else that we want to talk about? We've been going for coming up on an hour, I think. Oh, we're over an hour. Anything you guys want to talk about before we're done?
Play Elden Ring. No, I'm just kidding.
No, it's a
Zelda.
good choice. Elden Ring is good. Like I've only ever heard good things about it.
Oh, really? I'm just kidding. No, I don't doubt that. There's just, difficulty. But no, this isn't about Elden Ring. This is about Tears of the Kingdom.
Oh, true. Yeah.
I was just kidding. No, I think everybody's very excited. I think that personally, I wanna shoot one of those homing arrows from like a ×5 Lionel arrow, and just obliterate all mine
yeah.
enemies.
I didn't even think
So-
about that. A 5 times arrow with the homing arrows.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Tears of the Kingdom has to be better, right? So bring on the 10 times arrows. If it doesn't have 10 times arrows, I will return my collector's edition.
Multiply
Ooh.
everything.
But you did
Oh,
get a
what we're
collector's
gonna- Multiply
edition.
everything.
Very impressive.
No, I didn't.
We're gonna
Oh, you didn't.
But
we're
I'm gonna
gonna-
steal one if I have to.
Hey,
We're gonna-
one
Full
up top, let's
bandit
do it.
mode. He's
Full
going
bandit
full
mode.
bandit mode. He's gonna
Bread
steal
pirate and bandit.
Or
Let's do
pirate.
it.
Yeah. Yeah, let's do it, man. Just if there's space on the boat, I'm coming.
Yes. Welcome aboard the SS Paquode.
All right. Well, in
Beautiful.
that case, guys, I think it's good to wrap up on our end. Thank you all for joining me. And
Thank you.
Thank you for
Hopefully-
hosting this.
I'll see some of you guys
So
again.
fun. Always
Hopefully see
down.
you guys again in the future.